Today, I was asked to supervise a worker who's replacing the sewer pipes in this apartment. I'd like to show you what a typical apartment looks like for someone who retired during the Soviet era. These are the people who were children during World War II. I should mention this is very standard. Many people, unfortunately, still live this way today. These seniors are the ones who rebuilt our country after the war and helped create the Soviet Union. To give you some perspective, their monthly pension is only about $200 when converted to a more familiar currency. To help you understand the situation, the pipe work being done here today costs between $100 and $150. Why did I choose to show you this apartment today? You might think there's nothing remarkable about it, and in a way, you'd be right. This is a typical apartment for Soviet pensioners. The building itself is around 70 years old, and to be honest, I don't think it's really livable anymore. But the reality is, people still live here, and these buildings are still being patched up. In fact, right now, they're replacing the old sewage system, so it can keep working. To afford this kind of repair, people have to save up not just for a few months, but much longer. Let me tell you a bit about the owner of this apartment. She's 75 now, but her story goes back to when she was just 15. That's when she started working at a well-known factory that specialized in producing natural silk. Even in the Soviet Union, this silk was exported, and it was nearly impossible to find within the country because it was such a high-quality product. She worked there for many years and eventually retired, but had to keep working afterward to cover her expenses. This apartment, by Soviet standards, was considered quite good and was typically given to people with a long and solid work record, like hers. Here is the entrance to the apartment. There's a small coat rack, all original from those days, with shoes neatly placed below. Now, let me show you the rest of the apartment, starting with the corridor. You'll notice a wardrobe here, built for convenience to store belongings. In Soviet times, they made an effort to include built-in wardrobes wherever possible. Since the ceiling in this apartment is wooden and quite high, almost 3 meters, they installed wardrobes in every available space for extra storage. Here you can see the electricity meter, which is relatively modern. There's no gas line in the apartment, so they use gas cylinders instead. Interestingly, these cylinders, though still used today, are the same ones from Soviet times. It seems like nothing much has changed here in the modern era. There is a modern switch, but the wiring is all external for safety reasons, as the house is made of wood. That's why the electrical wires run along the top of the walls. Now, let's move on to the bathroom. As I mentioned earlier, they're currently replacing the sewage system, so everything is a bit of a mess right now. You can see how it looks. Here's the original cast iron pipe from back then. The worker is on a break at the moment. There's a small window that opens to the street, and an old cast iron bathtub. Nothing much has changed here since those times. They've replaced the wallpaper and the flooring. There are new tiles. But other than that, everything remains as it was. Now, stepping out of the bathroom, We turn and enter the kitchen. The kitchen is a walk-through space with a door that leads directly into the bedroom. The kitchen area itself is small but functional. Like the rest of the apartment, there are storage spaces everywhere. They've even made an archway here. This is the gas stove. Still in use after 50 to 60 years. The gas cylinder is connected to it in the same way it was back in Soviet times. This entire system for cooking is from that era. Over here, the owner keeps some extra items. Interestingly, there's an old oven for baking. And there are still some pieces of crockery left from those days. Of course, we use different dishes now, but what's there is there. The only truly modern items in this kitchen are a multi-cooker, an electric kettle, and a refrigerator. Everything else is a reminder of the past. Here's the washing machine. And next to it is the sink for washing dishes, along with a small drying area. Below the sink, there's a cabinet where you can see the ongoing work on the sewage system. Over here is the heating system and a window where they hang laundry to dry. This building is home to many pensioners in similar situations. You can see that the roof hasn't been replaced since Soviet times. I should mention that this is the city center, an urban area, and there are many buildings like this one. These houses should have been demolished long ago, and the residents should have been provided with new apartments. But unfortunately, there's very little hope for that happening. So, people replace their windows and keep living here, making do with what they have. So, this is how a modern pensioner lives. Someone who worked for the Soviet Union and, by local standards, earned what's considered a good pension. But really, how good is it? Technically, one can survive on this pension, but as you've seen, it's a very modest existence. Going on vacation, updating anything in the home, or doing any significant repairs is simply out of reach. A person doesn't live this way because they want to, but because they have to. After working for over 50 years and receiving a pension of around $200, this is the reality of life for many. I find it deeply unfair. Those who built a great nation shouldn't have to live like this. But the pensioners themselves often don't see it that way. They're grateful for what they have. In the Soviet Union, we were taught that modesty is a virtue, that a person doesn't need much. As long as you have a roof over your head, water, and the means to cook, everything beyond that is considered a luxury. Of course, I wish people had the chance to update their homes, maybe even move to new ones. Back in the Soviet days, receiving an apartment was seen as a huge achievement. People would work 20 to 25 years just to get their own place. In fact, this apartment once housed a family of 5, but now the owner lives here alone. And yet, there's no option to simply move or upgrade to something better. Personally, I feel a deep sense of sadness. It's heartbreaking to see that people who have worked their entire lives have never really gone anywhere or enjoyed a proper vacation. I asked the owner of this apartment if she had ever seen the sea or traveled abroad, and she simply said, "No, never." When I offered to help organize a trip for her, she admitted that at this point, she's too afraid to go anywhere. These are the people of the Soviet Union, people who live modestly and seem content with what little they have, even though they've been treated this way for so long. This is the hall, which serves as a room for receiving guests. As you can see, this main room is the largest in the apartment. It has all the essentials, but the decor is quite simple. The wallpaper is non-woven, and there's a lovely chandelier hanging from the ceiling. Currently, there are gifts here being prepared for a niece who is getting married soon. It's quite surprising to see such a picture in a pensioner's home. You'll notice a wooden picture on the wall. Similar pieces can be found in almost every pensioner's home. Here's an old dresser peeking out from behind some boxes. I won't pull them out to disturb anything. Most of the other furniture in the room, however, is more modern and reflects a different style. Over here is a picture and a TV. Everything is quite basic. Under the TV, there's a VHS player, along with various little figurines. I'd also like to highlight the floors, which are still original from when the house was built. They're made of painted wood. The heating radiators are cast iron, dating back to that era as well. The window has been replaced with a modern one, but the sockets, wiring and pipes all still reflect the Soviet period. But it's difficult for me to show this apartment because I feel it's unfair. The whole setting is just very, very modest. Now let's head into the bedroom. It's small too, with the same wooden floors from back then. The window here is original, from the time the house was built. I'll show it to you. You can hear a worker in the bathroom, busy with pipes. These are the windows, made of wood. How old are they? Probably around 70 years, like the house itself. They get repainted every now and then. It's a simple bedroom, just the essentials. A double bed, an old chair, probably a unique piece from the era. It's wooden, and you can tell it's been here a long time. 2 bedside tables. Everything necessary is here. And of course, a wardrobe. And here's the funny thing about our elderly residents. For some reason, they always store things in those checkered Chinese bags. You know the ones I mean, right? It's like they're always ready to pack up and move somewhere tomorrow. I don't know what this is related to. We've suggested making a proper storage system, maybe rearranging the room, maybe moving the bed and making a storage cabinet. But trying to convince them is pointless. They just prefer things the way they are. Most likely, what we have lying here. Yes, you see. Mattresses, towels, bed linen, necessary and unnecessary. And everything is stored like this. This is such a bedroom. This is a standard apartment of a pensioner who has lived her entire life in the Soviet Union. She is a child of World War II, has worked for a total of more than 50 years, and this is how she lives. You may ask how they receive guests. The table is moved here, to the sofa and chairs, and that's it. I'd love to hear from you about how pensioners live in your countries. For those who've dedicated decades of their lives to working, what kind of lifestyle can they afford now? How does it compare to the pensioners who lived through the Soviet Union? Please share your thoughts and stories in the comments. I'd be really interested to hear your perspectives. And one more request. Our channel is still in its early days, and I have to admit, we're a little shy and nervous as we start this journey. But we have a clear vision of what we want to achieve. We want to share the real, unvarnished truth about life in the Soviet Union, not the polished version from movies or the accounts from historians who didn't live it firsthand, but the actual day-to-day experience that most people went through. Our mission is to preserve this truth and ensure that it remains part of history, and that's why we've decided to create this channel. So I kindly ask for your support. Let us know in the comments what you're curious about, what you'd like us to show, and of course, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you for being with us on this journey. I'm Julie, and this is Soviet Born.
До новых встреч!